You know how when you're recording vocals, it's really nice to have some killer DSP style effects like reverb and delay, only your audio interface doesn't actually have them built into it? In this video, I'm going to show you how to get those style of effects without ever having to have any of those built into your interfaces in the first place, with gear you already own. Let's check it out. Hey guys, it's Steve from Featherlight Studio, and I'm sure you've all faced this before where you're recording, you're tracking some vocals, and it'd really be nice to have some nice DSP style effects like reverb and delay to kind of help take the edge off and make the performer feel a bit more comfortable, but maybe you're using a smaller interface or a combo controller interface that doesn't have DSP built into the interface itself. In this video, I'm going to show you how to get those effects with the gear you already own and not have to print it in the recording. Let's check it out. So the crux of the problem really is this. Most inexpensive audio interfaces don't have a lot of really high-end CPU related features like built-in DSP and advanced monitoring options. Smaller interfaces usually have something called a direct monitor button on it, which means you press it and then you hear your voice coming directly back to you from the audio interface. It's not making the round trip all the way through your computer and then back to you. Or you might have a monitor mix button, which mixes the sound of the DAW with the direct monitor feature, and then you kind of get a, sort of an approximation of your direct sound and what's coming back from the DAW. Neither one of those are very ideal because the sound coming back to you is still dry, bone dry, and pretty uninspiring. So to get around that, you might have tried enabling the track monitor button inside your DAW, and we get this. This is that weird swishy chorusy sound or flanging sound that we get when we engage both of those and we hear them at the same time coming back to us. All right, so clearly that's not going to work. It's pretty uninspiring, and it just sounds plain weird. And a lot of vocalists really depend on the clarity of their monitor signal, the sound in their headphones, to make pitch decisions. So we need to get around this. We need to be able to have some cool effects and vibe in our headphones, but we also need the sound coming back of our own voice to be crystal clear. So if we just use the direct monitor feature on our audio interface, it's going to sound crystal clear, but it's going to be pretty uninspiring. We're here inside our DAW project. In this particular example, we're using Steinberg's Cubase, but it doesn't really matter. It could be any DAW. You could be using Pro Tools or Studio One or Logic or Ableton Live. All of the DAWs work similar in this one regard. They all have project tracks. They all have some kinds of groups or aux buses, and they all have some way to send to those groups and aux buses. So in this particular example, we have a small acoustic project. It's just an acoustic guitar. We have some string section and cello backing, and then we have a vocalist, and it sounds like this.
Oh, but I just thought you might want something fine, made of silver or golden.
So as you can hear, we don't have any effects buses set up in the project yet, and this is exactly what it sounded like to the vocalist while she was tracking. And while Lena's doing a great job of it, it would be nice to add some DSP style effects to her headphone mix to help her out. But our audio interface that we're currently using doesn't offer any onboard DSP effects to help out with this problem. So let's jump on over to our console view here. We have the tracks on the left-hand side, and we have the buses or group tracks on the right-hand side. So we have a drum group, we have acoustic guitar group, keys, vocals, a backing vocal, and our stereo outs. And so far, that's all we have. So we need to do a couple things first, and we need to build some effects tracks. So we're going to right-click, and we're going to add an effects track, and we're going to choose one of Steinberg's really, really nice reverbs to work with. This is called Revelation. We're going to make sure that our configuration for the channel is stereo, and then we're going to give it a name, and this is going to be our Vox Verb. So the most important part about this is that we leave the mix knob at 100%. Now, we've already done a previous video on how to create aux tracks for effects and all of that, and I'll leave that information in the links below, but for the time being, we're just going to create this quick reverb, and we're going to click out of here. So as you can see, our vocal reverb track, our group track, is sitting right here next to our other track. So we need to fix that. We want to move that over to where our group tracks are. And this is just an organizational thing. It just makes it a whole lot easier to see all your groups in one place and all your tracks in one place. So our vocal effects, typically in a project, are color-coded a specific color, and you can see the cap reflects that of the faders. So we have a vocal verb on its own group or aux track. Now we're going to repeat the exact same process and build one more aux effects track or bus, and this one is going to be for delay. We're going to choose a ping pong delay for this example, and we're also going to make sure that its configuration is stereo as well, just like before. We'll call this Vox delay. We're actually going to choose an 1/8 of a delay, and the spatial knob we're going to leave it almost completely hard left and right, and we're going to leave the feedback here at about 28%, and our mix, just like the vocal reverb, is going to be at 100% because this is going to be an aux track. So a key point here, anytime you're using digital effects on an aux track or bus and you're sending to them from a channel, the mix on those effects is always set at 100% wet. Now that we have our mix architecture set up in the ballpark with a couple of effects buses ready to go, it's time to create some sends to those buses so that we can add some delay and reverb to our headphones mix and create a little bit more inspiring tracking environment. So one of the most important parts of this whole concept is the understanding of signal flow and a little bit about how signal flows through a mixer. So if we understand the concept of pre and post, then we can use those concepts to our advantage, specifically in this scenario where we really want to get some DSP style effects like reverb and delay into our headphone mixes without having to print them, but more importantly, without having to have that weird swishy chorusing sound going on because we're hearing the latency, even really low latency, can cause that problem. So we're back inside our Cubase project and we need to set up Lynn's headphone mix so that she's got some nice effects and ambience to record with. So the first thing we want to do is hit the direct monitor button on our interface so we can hear our voice crystal clear, and then set the DAW level. And if you have a mix knob that mixes between the DAW and your voice, mix that till that sounds good to you. If we come up here and we simply send, or we create a send that goes over to the Vox verb, for example, and we power it up, and then we enable the track monitor, we get this latency. So yes, technically we have reverb, but we also have latency, and that's not going to work. But if we come over here and we look at this little indicator right here, this button says post fader send. If we click on that and change it to pre-fader send, we're going to have a completely different result. Now, this ability to change back and forth between pre and post is the same on practically any DAW. So it doesn't matter whether you're working in Cubase like we are, or you're working in Pro Tools, or Studio One, or Logic, or Ableton Live, or Reason. All of the DAWs allow you to change the character of the send itself from pre to post. Watch what happens when we leave this in the pre position and then drop the fader level to 0 and then come over and enable this. Check, check, 1, 2, check, test, 1, 2. You can hear we have nice, clean, pretty reverb with no latency whatsoever. All right, so let's drop this slider for a second here. This is our send slider, and talk a little bit about why this actually works. We talked a little bit before about pre and post, and the difference between the two is really important. In its post fader send position, which is this, if we bring that up, you start to hear that latency. And the latency is the problem because you're hearing your own voice coming back from the direct monitor feature of your audio interface, and you're hearing the DAW audio as well. So you're hearing the direct audio from your interface and you're hearing the direct audio from your DAW. Therein lies the problem. If we raise and lower the slider, it raises and lowers the amount of the send. However, if we change this to pre-fader send and we bring this up, notice how I didn't move the channel fader, I just moved the send. The reason this works is because in pre-fader position, the send itself is taken before the position of the fader is taken into account. And this trick right here allows us to get away with this. All right, so we can do exactly the same thing with our delay send as well. Let's come up to the Sends tab and we'll create a send over to our vocal delay aux bus. So when we power it on, it's in its blue position, which is already pre. If it was in post fader, we wouldn't hear anything because our fader is down. But in its pre position, we can bring this up. Check, 1, 2. And there's our delay. check, 1, 2. So if we bring this down to a manageable level and we bring back up the reverb, check, 1, 2, check, test, 1, 2. Let's power these off for a second. That gives us really beautiful effects that are controllable inside our headphone mix that are being generated from the DAW and not from our audio interface just by enabling the track monitoring feature. And our record send to the DAW is still completely dry, so we can tweak our effects after the fact to our heart's content. It's important to understand that this only works with send style effects that go to aux effects buses like digital reverb and delay. It doesn't work with channel effects that are inserts. So reverb, de-essers, compressors, things like that, it won't work with because those are on our individual channel and we would need to raise the fader level to hear them. And if we did that, we would be introducing latency, which would cause the problem all over again. So this only works with digital style effects on our effects buses. So there's a quick look on how you can add DSP style effects like reverb and delay into your recordings, even if your audio interfaces don't have those effects built into them. So the advantage of using the plugins in your own DAW as the source here means that your audio interfaces don't have to have that extra CPU muscle to pull that off. So we kind of have the best of both worlds, and the best part is it's already built into your DAW and they're plugins you already know and use. So hey, if you learned something or if this was helpful in any way, please hit the subscription and notification bells. It really does help keep the channel going. It helps me make more videos like this. Stay safe, be creative. Add something creative to the world that could really use it. We'll catch you guys in the next video.